Josh, this is a fraternity that nobody wants to be in, but once you have received this diagnosis, you're never the same. So I was somebody who had a good knowledge of cancer and how to beat it. And here I was with this label that no one ever wants to have: cancer. In the conventional cancer model, they either kill you or they kill the cancer. Now, I said to the doctor, I believe God's going to heal me. And he said, I was afraid you'd say that. I read about you. If you do not get conventional treatment, you have a 100% chance of being dead in 90 days.
In order to prevent cancer and fight cancer, what are some of your favorite foods that the Bible talks about that have anti-cancer properties?
Absolutely. We'll start with the obvious. The wisest meal on the earth, and it's going to shock some people because it involves red meat at the forefront. The creatine, the collagen, the carnitine, the carnosine, anserine, zinc, iron, B12, B6. That's all found in a food that has been vilified, and I believe it's on purpose.
"19 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with cancer for the second time, and she beat it all naturally using principles of the Bible and food as medicine. And today I'm bringing on a guest, a close friend of mine, Jordan Rubin, who beat cancer naturally as well when he was told he had a 0% chance of healing. Today we're going to walk through how to heal from cancer using principles of the Bible. Jordan, welcome to the show.
It's great to be back, and this is a topic I am extremely passionate about.
Well, you should. Well, I'd love for you to start off because a lot of people know your story of healing from Crohn's and colitis. It's an incredible story where you lost 80 pounds, were left in a wheelchair, and you were able to heal completely from this devastating autoimmune disease, this form of inflammatory bowel disease, using principles of the Bible. But what a lot of people don't know is quite a few years ago, you were diagnosed with cancer, and you beat that using biblical healing principles as well. Share with us a little bit about that story and what happened.
Yeah, Josh, this is a fraternity that nobody wants to be in, but once you have received this diagnosis, you're never the same. And in my case, I like to believe that this journey, and you obviously see me here, so I call myself a cancer conqueror. This journey has made me extremely passionate, but also a little bit angry that cancer, the disease that has so many forms, is robbing us of life, robbing us of loved ones, robbing us of time. And you and I are both sports fans. As we're taping this, yesterday, a Hall of Fame baseball player by the name of Ryne Sandberg died at age 65 from metastatic prostate cancer. But what's really frustrating is he, quote unquote, rang the bell within a year, meaning he was cancer-free, right? In the conventional cancer model, they either kill you or they kill the cancer. And this idea that you can be cancer-free and then be dead 9 months later is absolutely awful. So here I am in 2008. I was in the middle of a 6-month, what should have been a 10-month tour around the country, promoting a new book, filming a television program, and speaking hundreds of times on health and nutrition. I was running Garden of Life, which at the time was a top nutritional supplement company, and I had my whole year planned out. Now, in the middle of the year, as I came back to Florida, where I was living at the time, I was filming a series of programs called The Supernatural Athlete. And you can imagine, I was pretty excited. I had fitness experts, professional athletes, and we were going to go through a program where we would eat and perform exercise, etc., and track our results. But prior to that, I felt some kind of issue in my groin area that I thought was an inguinal hernia or a sport hernia. And I was starting to lose some function. There was a lot of pain, and I was going to see a doctor after I tried a bunch of different natural things. And this was the Miami Dolphins team physician. And he looked at me and said, "You're exactly right. You have an inguinal hernia." But as I left, I made a comment and I said, Now I'm running a fever, and I said, could this possibly be something else? And he said, probably not, but when you get your surgery to repair the hernia, if there's anything else going on, they're going to see it. So I went in for an outpatient procedure to get a hernia patched up, if you will. And I woke up, and as they wheeled me in, I saw my wife, Nikki, my mom, and my mom's friend, and my mom was tearing up. And this was just coming out of anesthesia, and I was groggy. And the doctor told me, Jordan, you didn't have a hernia. You have cancer. And this was the shock of all shocks. Josh, I had just written a book on natural healing from cancer 6 months prior to this. I had coached people on their journey from death to life, including my own grandmother who was diagnosed with terminal cancer and beat it at age 80. And I even named a mushroom product after her in 2001. So I was somebody who had a good knowledge of cancer and how to beat it. And here I was with this label that no one ever wants to have: cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so I remember when I first met you in person, I went and stayed at your house. And this would be a whole nother story, but yeah, went and stayed with Jordan in West Palm Beach. I remember going in there and thinking, and what you were eating at the time was a pretty, incredible diet. There was you did a lot of salmon, a lot of raw salmon, cerveza. I remember you doing a lot of green juices, avocado. I mean, a really very specific diet. And I remember my first thought was, wow, this guy's really hardcore. I'm like, he's eating incredibly clean. I'm like, the healthiest foods on the planet. It's the only thing he's eating every single day. But this is part of your natural cancer healing protocol. And the thing that I was so impressed by too with your own cancer protocol was it included a very specific diet. It included very specific whole food-based supplements. It included essential oils. It included holistic treatments. It also included a prayer that you said every single day for healing. And I actually used that same prayer to help heal my back when I was diagnosed with a condition that was, life-threatening as well. And so anyways, I'd love for you to walk us through sort of also your experience with that. And we want to get to all those things, the diet, the supplements, all the things in healing cancer. But I'd love to share with you your reaction to the doctor when he gave you the news that you have cancer.
Well, the reaction was bewilderment, because it just never occurred to me that this would happen, because after overcoming Crohn's and colitis, I had followed a very, I'll say, disciplined way of life that included body, mind, and spirit. So this was a huge shock to me. But the doctor said, we likely got it all, removed it, but we do need to have some follow-up tests. So I went in to get a CT scan, and then I went to the doctor's office. He was a uro-oncologist, and Nikki, my wife, and I were sitting in his office, and he walks in with a stack of papers, folder, and he says, there's more to talk about. There's more to discuss. That can't be good. Mm-hmm. So he says, I'm going to go get some more files and be right back. And Josh, I got to tell you, I think the most important element to my healing occurred when the doctor was leaving his office, going to get his files. And I'm so grateful that God gave me this little bit of faith during that time. So he leaves. I'm kind of shaking, which you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I tell Nikki, guard the door, like stand in front of the door. And Josh, I walked a few steps and I put my face on the ground in a doctor's office and I quoted Job chapter 1, verse 21. This is a verse that God spoke to me about in 1999, and I used it about 5 times in my life when I have a devastating set of news. It's like getting punched in the gut, slapped in the face. You're breathless. You can't figure anything out.
Yeah.
You can only turn to God. And Job chapter 1, verse 21 says, naked I came into this earth, and naked I shall return. It is the Lord who gives and the Lord who takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Yeah. This happened when Job lost his fortune, his animals, and then his children, and then his health. And he went to the Lord in a sign of humility. I literally put my chin on the ground and I said those words. And I did so because every time I would pray what I call Job's prayer in the past, this was from 1999 now through 2008, God worked miracles sometime after that. Now, it wasn't always exactly the way I planned, but just like in Job's life, I felt like God gave me not only what I lost, but gave me more. So I went and sat down. The doctor comes in and he says, Jordan, your cancer is metastasized throughout the lymph nodes, and I have done the surgery I'm going to recommend, which was kind of like a triangle surgery to remove 20 to 30 lymph nodes. Very invasive surgery. And he said, you'll need likely chemo before and after, and maybe radiation, probably not. But he said, I am able to do the surgery, but you're so severe, I want you to go to one of two places tomorrow. Like, it wasn't, you can take your time. You either need to go to Boston, which would be Brigham and Women's Hospital, which was in the Harvard system, or Indiana University. He said in Boston, the author of the latest textbook on this cancer is practicing there, and I'd prefer you see him. Now, I said to the doctor, I said, I believe God's going to heal me. And he said, I was afraid you'd say that. I read about you. And he said, Jordan, if you had prostate cancer, I'd give you 6 months to work this out naturally. The type of cancer you have, which by the way was embryonal testicular cancer, so it was what Lance Armstrong had, which is why he went to Indiana, et cetera. And he said, 100 years ago, this killed every man who was diagnosed. And if you do not get conventional treatment, you have a 100% chance of being dead in 90 days.
Wow.
If you don't get conventional treatment, you have a 100% chance of being dead in 90 days. And Nikki and I were shaken, but my first thought, Josh, wasn't, woe is me. I wasn't taking a victim mentality. My first thought was, what an amazing testimony, because who in the world gets a 0% chance to live? And as I listened to the doctor talk, he had just lost his wife to cancer. So he was sort of on a little bit of a rampage. And I made the decision in my mind that I'm not going to have natural health be my idol. Now, I had not taken an aspirin, an antibiotic or anything in 12 years since I was healed of Crohn's disease. Ate meticulously, lived a very healthful lifestyle, but I wasn't going to allow my own dogma to rule here. I had just adopted 2 children, and I had a 4-year-old son, and this was not going to be a family that lost their dad and a wife who lost her husband. However, I did believe God was going to heal me, and later, Josh, as I would dig in to a life or death belief, I believed God already had healed me. Now, I grew up, and I'll get a little denominational here. I grew up and was raised in the Lord in a Southern Baptist denomination, as was my wife, Nikki. Amazing teaching, amazing youth group. I went through a Bible study called Experiencing God, which absolutely changed my life. I had a relationship with Jesus. I believed when I was younger that when you pray for somebody, you would say, Lord, if it's your will to heal so-and-so, please do. But now that I was facing cancer, I changed the message to, by your stripes, I am healed. And I was going to walk it out and watch God manifest the healing that he already paid for. And I decided, Josh, not to take my following or whatever at the time through this. I didn't make it public. I told my team at Garden of Life, I said, I've been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer. God has healed me. You're going to see it. Some of them weren't believers, so it was pretty interesting reaction. But I am unplugging from work completely for 40 days. Now, Josh, you know me. Like, for me to unplug from work at 3 a.m. in the morning is rare. I told my very close friends and my family. Of course, my family was devastated. My friends were pretty good, and anyone who challenged my belief or said, Jordan, don't you think you should get chemo? I'm worried about you. I decided not to communicate with anyone in my life who didn't believe I would be healed. And that included the doctor in Boston. So I went to Harvard 3 weeks later, the halls of one of the most esteemed universities on the planet.
Yeah.
I literally had Dr. Undertaker as the oncologist. I was asking questions. So, doctor, the chemo that you're going to recommend, what are some of the side effects? I dealt with inflammatory bowel disease, I told him. I need to know and understand. It was obviously a platinum-based therapy, cisplatin and others. I just want to know how strong, how hard are you going to hit this? And he just was a total jerk. And in fact, he said, yeah, I know who you are. What are your followers going to think now? Like, that's what he said. He gave me a test to measure a blood marker for cancer. I had already extended the time to visit this doctor a few weeks because I wanted to start hitting the program pretty hard on the natural side, but my blood marker got worse. Instead of being devastated, I looked at this stupid little slip of paper and I literally cursed it, ripped it up, threw it away. My wife and I left there knowing that we would never step a foot back in there. It was so clear that my path was not going to be Brigham and Women's Medical, not the #1 doctor in the world who treats this kind of cancer. I was going to devote 40 days to healing in body, mind, soul, and spirit.
Wow.
And Josh, I spent 14 hours a day surrounding myself with the best opportunity to heal, starting with the biblical principles that we share in our new book, The Biblio Diet.
Yeah.
And what's exciting is for the first time, I'm putting this in writing. Like, the Biblio Diet is the first time in 17 years that I'm sharing my cancer story. But first, the rest of it. I went through 40 days, 14 hours, as I said. Josh, I did infrared sauna for 2 hours a day. I would drink this special raw green juice in one, and then I made this drink with raw cucumber, raw coconut meat that would be pressed into a juice, some tomato. I ate raw beef. I ate raw salmon. I consumed raw egg smoothies. I did something called plant stem cell therapy, which was a type of herbalism. You mentioned this.
Yeah.
I had a essential oil massage every day for 40 days using biblical essential oils. I had lymphatic treatment. I got sunshine. And I said a healing prayer that my dad, the Bible, and some teachers helped me write 3 times a day out loud. And when I prayed this prayer, which is in the Biblio Diet, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I would pray this prayer out loud and I felt energized. I had chills.
Yeah.
And every time I prayed it and confessed God's promises, it was almost like the demons were holding their ears. It was like piercing the darkness and putting them on notice. And for 40 days, I had joy, except 4 times when I worked with a very sophisticated clinic measuring my blood work every 2 weeks. I had set a plan to have a CT scan 40 days later at the same radiology center where I got diagnosed. Now, keep in mind, the radiologist didn't know anything about me or my treatment.
Yeah.
For all he knew, I was on chemo and did surgery, etc. And because I wasn't working with either oncologist anymore, because I just wasn't going to be around someone who cursed me, I had a good friend, Dr. Brasco, who had co-authored books with me. And I said, Joe, will you order a CT scan with contrast so I can get the exact test to prove what I knew God was going to do? And he said, Jordan, I love you like a brother. And if anyone can beat this, it's you. But you need to promise me that if your tumors are not gone, you're going to seek conventional therapy. I appreciated him so much, but even he couldn't get his arms around the fact that God was going to heal me. So 2 weeks come by and I get my blood work, and the PhD who was the head of the clinic, who I came to know, called me. And this peace that I had, this purpose, wavered when my hand shook and I saw his number on my cell phone. And I answered and he said, Jordan, we tested your blood 3 ways for an HCG test, which that's like a pregnancy test.
Yeah.
It's what was used in certain weight loss protocols. That is a marker for embryonal testicular cancer. I had a 268 number when I was at Harvard Medical. No, less than 1 is really normal. You want 0.
Yeah.
So I got the test results and he said, Jordan, each of the 3 tests are in the 20s. And I was like, praise God. But then I thought, as doubt crept in, maybe it's a different scale they're measuring on. It's a different lab.
Yeah.
Maybe it couldn't be. So then I keep hitting my protocol, 14 hours a day, praising God, working on forgiveness, eating. I was doing all kinds of amazing therapies, breath work, you name it. And the second 4-week measurement, which would have been 2 weeks after the first, the doctor calls and all this peace I had goes out the window and my hand's shaking as I see his number and I answer. And he said, Jordan, I don't know what's going on, but your 3 test results came back. And you get this, Josh, it was like slow motion. I'm like, what's he going to say? He said 0, 0, 0.
Wow.
I literally
Praise
started
God.
tearing up and I was like, this is so amazing. I can actually feel it right now. And praise God, I'm so excited. But then again, the doubt creeps in and I thought, what if it's the wrong person's blood? What if, it's so tough, Josh, when we're dealing with something that we need to walk by faith, but we walk by sight.
Yeah.
So I was in the final 2 weeks of this 40-day program. I called Dr. Brasco, my buddy Joe, and he said, Jordan, I'm so thrilled with your zeros, but I want to see the next result. I'd love to see confirmation. So 6 weeks are up. The doctor calls again. I look at my phone and I am still shaking again. I can't explain it. It's like Peter walking on water and then plummeting because he takes his eyes off Jesus. The doctor says, Jordan, same result, 0, 0, 0. I was so excited. Praise God. This was the end of the 40 days. My wife, Nikki, and I went and celebrated. We went out to eat at a seafood restaurant, one you probably like quite a bit in Palm Beach County. And I was going in for the scan. And 3 days later, I was going to get my results. Now, this was not going to be through a doctor. This was coming directly to me because the scans were ordered at the radiology center. And I'm sitting at my kitchen table the morning when I was going to go get my results, 43 days after I embarked on this healing program. And I'm holding a glass of water, Josh, and my hand starts to shake, thinking about how important this result's going to be, how it's going to dictate what I'm going to do the rest of my life, how I can either help share the message of health and hope with cancer patients or end up in chemotherapy and surgery. I knew my blood markers were good, but I had made the mistake of looking online and seeing if somebody who had good blood markers, even 0, could they still have malignant tumors and cancer activity? And of course, I got some mixed to negative news, which was stupid that I did this. So I'm holding this glass and I drop it on the glass floor, shattered. And I said, Nikki, I'm going to need you to drive me. I can't drive. Like, I am an absolute mess.
Yeah.
So we go to the radiology center and I take a deep breath. I walk in through these glass doors and the woman at the front desk has a manila envelope and everything slowed down. I couldn't look at the results in the clinic. I had to get out into the parking lot because this was the most important thing I would ever see in my life. At least I thought that. So I have this envelope and I open it. Nikki's standing real close to me and I pull the page out and I see a lot of stuff. I see tumors this size. I see swollen lymph nodes and I was heartbroken. But then I look at the top and this was my original diagnosis sheet. And I was like, God, you have a sense of humor. Nothing is ever easy.
Wow.
And I flip the page, Josh, and I see normal size, normal size, normal size. I dropped the envelope. I hugged Nikki. I was weeping. I got in the car and I was about to make the 20 to 30 best phone calls of my life. My dad had blamed himself for this cancer because as a chiropractor and a naturopath, he did not opt for a surgery that would remove an undescended testicle or lower it and release it where it should have been. And because I had it in my groin for 30 some years, the chance of cancer was like 1,000 times increased. No heating and cooling.
Right.
And I just had been to doctors. I had gotten physicals. No one ever said anything. I just thought it disappeared. I was used to this because I never had it. And so when I called my dad, I remember trying to get the words out. And I said, Dad, I'm cancer free. And then he was bawling. And Josh, I got to tell you, I called my friends and some loved ones, and I got to share with my employees that God healed me. And then they would each say, Jordan, I believed in you, but I was so scared for you. Jordan,
Yeah.
I didn't want to lose my best friend. I didn't want to lose my boss. And I got to tell you, Josh, from that moment on, I made a commitment that I was going to devote the rest of my life to helping people overcome cancer. Crohn's disease and inflammatory bowel disease, still an important part of my journey. I love helping people that are dealing with all kinds of illnesses. But there's something different about cancer. It's more than a disease.
Yeah.
It's something spiritual. And I came up with a concept that I will eventually put out there called To Hell with Cancer. And I start introducing it in the Biblio Diet, and one day that'll be a book of its own. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't ask God for wisdom to heal cancer. And years later, in fact, about 10, he gave me something that I think is for many people watching today.
Yeah. Wow. It's such an amazing story. And I think that a lot of things come to mind. Number one, your first reaction was to get down on your hands and knees and to pray, Job's prayer. And so, I think for anybody has any sort of, and I think about when my mom had cancer, her second time especially, like flying home, first thing we did, get down on our knees, pray to God, ask for guidance and healing. And so if somebody has cancer, that really should be the first step. And the other thing is you praise God through the storm. I mean, through all of it, constant praise, but also you did everything you could to heal your temple, to take care of the temple God had given you. And I think a lot of times people get a diagnosis, and whether they do chemo or not, oftentimes it's sometimes people don't take action, right? Even if you're going to go through chemo, you're better off radically changing your diet, doing everything you can on your body. So that sort of follow through is really amazing. And just sort of also the prayer side of it. You said something, and I want to kind of go into this next, the sort of spiritual aspects of cancer. Then I want to get into the nutrition. But, when my mom had cancer, the word that I would most associate with that she constantly felt was fear. I mean, there is a spirit of fear with cancer.
Yes.
Share with us a little bit about your experience with that, and then how did you work to fight that fear?
It's unbelievable, the pre and post of a cancer diagnosis. And I have learned over the years, after coaching umpteen numbers of cancer diagnosed, I don't like to say cancer patients, people that are diagnosed with cancer, I can usually tell within 20 minutes if they're going to live or if they're going to die. And often it has to do with their attitude. And I don't mean just putting on a good face or being positive. If someone uses the word cancer 1,000 times more than they're using the word healed, it makes a huge difference because out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, and death and life are in the power of the tongue. So if you're diagnosed and you tell everyone you know, cancer, patient, cancer this, cancer that, and nowadays with social media, I have cancer, I have cancer, I have cancer. If you have cancer and you're saying that cancer has you, Josh, I was on a protocol 14 hours a day fighting cancer. And when you said to me the word cancer, I almost didn't know what you were talking about. It was so odd. I didn't accept it. I didn't own it. And I did a few things that were really important. So you and I have a mutual friend, Dr. Alex Lloyd, who I love. I was just texting with him before the program. And he is an expert in emotional healing and removing stored memories. And I knew that this was the battle of my life. And so I asked Alex if he would help me deal with some unforgiveness, some memories. What did I need to do to be as clean or as cleansed as I could, the same way that I would detox my body? And he helped me over a 4-day period, Josh, and this is absolute work. And it's harder than any nutritional protocol you could think of. I went back from my earliest memories all the way to the present day, and I was 30 plus years old, and I jotted down every time someone had hurt me or I had hurt someone else. And if someone hurt me, I visited the memory and I would grade it or rank it, like from 1 to 10. How much emotion did I still hold? And if it was a 4, 5, 6, or 10, I would pray and ask the Lord to heal it. And I wouldn't leave the memory until I until he healed it. Josh, I went back to a memory when I was 8 years old playing Little League Baseball where I was in a slump and the coach grabbed me by the shirt or the jersey before I got up to bat and he said, Jordan, if you strike out again, I'm going to do something terrible to you. Like, could you imagine? But I had this, and it probably led to fear. It led to insecurity, dealing with pressure. And that was just one. There were times when my parents, particularly my dad, said some pretty horrible things to me. A girl who I liked dumping me or turning me down. And I went through all of it. And then, Josh, there was plenty of times where I made fun of somebody, hurt somebody, mistreated someone. It took 4 days. But when I was done, I felt a huge weight lifted off of me. That plus the healing prayer that is about 7 minutes long that I would quote and pray out loud really helped remove the fear. Because I have said this. When you combine cancer, which I believe is demonic, people may not want to listen to that that are tuning in for just nutrition, but it is not normal for the same disease when you have a blood disorder like leukemia or when you have a solid tumor like colon cancer, that it's the same thing. This is so abnormal. And it's abnormal that the treatment for a disease could cause the disease, the actual disease. And so when you combine cancer with fear, and then the pharmaceutical industry, which the Greek word is pharmakia, which in the Bible and the ancient Greek means witchcraft. So cancer, which is a devourer, think about cancer in, it's a crab, like cancer in, sort of the astrology stuff. And what does a crab do? It devours its prey from the inside out, pretty much. Cancer is named that for a reason. And I'm going to say one thing. If somebody's watching that has cancer as a diagnosis, do not own it. Do not say you are a cancer XYZ or you have cancer. You've got to be free of that. And you've got to realize that God created you to be healed and he paid that price for you. And even though you could say, Jordan, how can you say that God healed you? What about my uncle who died of cancer? What about that amazing pastor friend of mine? What about the grandma who prayed every day that died from cancer? All I knew, Josh, is that I'm not them. I don't know their story. I don't know what they dealt with. I don't know how they battled, but I looked at my 3 kids, my 2 babies and my son Joshua and my wife, and not a legacy, but a future life of bringing healing and hope to people. And I said, I am healed because God says I am by his stripes. And I just made the decision that that was going to happen. And I fought for it. And I believed in my healing more than I believed in the doctor's words and WebMD and in this death sentence. And that ability to, in spirit, soul, and emotions, that healing was huge because I ultimately saw it happen. Now, I worked my butt off on nutrition and detoxification, but I tell people the most universal healing is prayer, confession, belief, and forgiveness. And we have a mutual friend who at one point said, Jordan, I have a relative with cancer. Can you send me your healing prayer? And I did. I have a pastor friend that I also sent it to. And I've seen 2 people, Josh, that God used his promises to heal them without going on a protocol. I mean, so amazing. Now, most people I find need to make changes and fight for the best nutrition and detoxification, but God is the universal healer. And so what I'm so excited about in the Biblio Diet is not just that we're going to tell people about my story and an amazing discovery that God brought to me for healing, but that healing prayer is in there that you can pray 3 times a day, which is so amazing. And I just think thousands of people are going to be delivered in part because their spirit will be set free.
Cancer, dementia, heart disease, they're coming for so many people. And it's not just because of what most people think, which is that it's bad luck or bad genetics. The truth is your daily choices are either creating health or setting the stage for disease, and your doctor is probably reading your blood work all wrong. They're missing the cellular issues behind the symptoms. I'm currently offering a simple at-home blood test that actually tests for the right things. And just as importantly, it comes with proper interpretation of the results. This new test flips the script. The future of interpreting test results is here. If you want to check it out and grab one before they're gone, just go to mybloodwork.com now. Yeah, I agree. And when I think about the causes of cancer, I think in ranking order, number one is a spiritual, emotional mindset piece. I think it's number one. Number two is diet. Number three is toxin exposure. But I think number one, as we talked about, is a spiritual thing. And there's literature on this now. We know all the ancient forms of medicine, everything from Chinese medicine to Ayurveda to, other ancient forms of medicine believe this, that childhood trauma, these things that then become memories, that then feed our subconscious and cause us to think certain thoughts, hold certain beliefs about things, make us sick. There's the German New Medicine out, which is sort of growing in popularity, is just taking what, other ancient forms of medicine did and making it new again. But there are certain things in there, like, for instance, if you're had a bad relationship with your mom or other women in your life and they said things negatively, that's really, according to these ancient forms of medicine, destructive to the immune system and digestive system. If it's been with a father figure, that's immune system and liver, gallbladder, and your detoxification system. So there are very specific things that happen when we're kids that oftentimes we still live with today. And here's another example. I have somebody who was just embarrassed because their family made a lot of mistakes. And that person's lived with a lot of guilt and shame because of it. So sometimes it's not even something we did. It's something even somebody we are associated with did. And we live with these wounds and they fester like an infection and they grow and they grow and they grow and they make us sick. And so if you're going to heal from cancer, it's so important to do what Jordan did. And that is go in. And especially the number one thing you said over and over again, forgive, forgive, forgive. Forgive others that have hurt you. Forgive yourself. Ask for forgiveness. In Chinese medicine, it's believed that that's forgiveness is sort of a form of resentment towards something that's happened in the past. It's believed that shuts down two systems, immune system, detoxification system. So going and really addressing that and forgiveness, it's so, so powerful. So don't overlook that. And then spend time in praise as Jordan did, and also prayer. We're going to ask Jordan to just say just a small, by the way, I'm not going to ask him to say the whole thing because it'll take him about 15 minutes total to just read through the prayer itself, probably. Maybe 5 minutes. It's a long prayer. But it's in the book. And what you can do, by the way, if you get our new book, the Biblio Diet here, you can actually, here's what I did. So Jordan, when I had this infection, Jordan said, hey, I'm going to send you my prayer. Go in and sort of fill in your own words there and ideas, because I didn't have cancer, but I had a life-threatening infection in my spine and bone. And so I went in and I took the prayer that Jordan gave me, and I went in and filled in, my name, some verses, so you can sort of customize the prayer for yourself. And you'll find that in our book here, the Biblio Diet. It's in bookstores nationwide, Amazon.com. But that prayer is so, so powerful. Walk us through sort of that mind. If we are to pray for healing, and this could be for cancer, but other conditions as well, what are some of the things you're praying? What are you asking God for? What is that prayer in its essence?
I think first we want to talk about and acknowledge God making us in his image to be healthy. So the Bible says we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
And when you're diagnosed with cancer, especially if it's metastatic and you know the exact places, you tend to hate your body and think that your body is working against you. So when you talk about God created you to live in his image, to live and not die, created you for great health, that's really important and for a purpose. Then you want to talk about God's promises. He says it in Isaiah and 1 Peter that Jesus took the penalty of sin and sickness upon him. Those 39 lashes or 40 lashes minus 1, that was the price he paid for our sickness. And that's why we would say by his stripes, which were the cat of nine tails, by his wounds we are healed. But then you kind of get aggressive and say that I am a joint heir with Jesus and I have become the righteousness of Christ. Therefore, no tumors, no lesions, no cancer can live in my body. I have a blood transfusion that is the blood of the Lamb. Now, this is important, Josh, because in Revelation it says we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word or power of our testimony. And so, again, this prayer is extremely long, but you go on to proclaim the promises of God. You talk about God putting a hedge of protection around you that no enemy can penetrate. We talk about the Bible saying we can tread on the devil, because in Psalm 91, it says, I will tread upon the lion and the adder or the cobra. And it gives us that power through Jesus to literally stomp out the enemy. And it was probably the most enjoyable, electrifying part of my day, Josh, because I knew that I was doing something that was going to raise my body's healing ability. I was going to sow into the powerful words that are life, and it would antidote any amount of things that I said during the day that would be doubt, or if I would mention the term cancer, or if I would make an excuse. And I made sure that the scale of words that were quoting God's promises and believing for healing were much higher than any doubt or fear, when in a typical scenario, someone who is battling cancer is surrounded by it. They're at an oncology center where there's 30 other people getting IVs. They're constantly talking about it, constantly reading about it. Cancer, 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 cancer. Hey, why are you not at work? I have cancer. Why are you not at the softball game? I have cancer. Your spouse says, my husband has cancer. My child has cancer. That word itself is used 1,000 times to the every time we talk about healing.
Yeah.
And my protocol, which was 14 hours a day, was not easily replicatable. By the way, you had asked what I did every day, and this is really important. We talked about the essential oil massage, which was amazing. 40 days in a row. I did lymphatic drainage. I got an hour or more of sunshine at noon. I was very tan, as you could tell. I went in an hour and 20 minutes of infrared sauna therapy, and there was a little bit more. From a diet perspective, I did eat an all raw diet, but it was not raw vegan. I would take different meats and marinate them. People may not know, but you can cook meats. I call it raw, but what it really was unheated. So I would have salmon or snapper ceviche, which is you use apple cider vinegar or lime juice or lemon juice to cook the fish, but it would keep the enzymes and nutrients intact.
Wow.
I would have carpaccio, which was beef, but primarily in extra virgin olive oil, which had a similar function. So I'd eat a good amount of meat. I consumed raw eggs, raw dairy products, a little bit of raw fruit, quart a day of raw juice. And then I had other drinks that I would make with raw coconut cream, with tomato and cucumber. And if you think about it, raw tomato is powerful, like raw lycopene mixed up. Cucumber had silica. I had parsley. I had celery and lemon juice and a little ginger. So it was a meticulously amazing diet. I consumed systemic enzymes, which help to break down circulating immune complexes, amazing probiotics and postbiotics we call SBOs. I had organ supplements, and then I would consume herbs from immature plants, which you could call gemotherapy or plant stem cell therapy. And this was a lot. And I was able to work with a few people over the years to follow this protocol. One is Pastor Diego Mesa, who's a friend of both of ours. He overcame late stage renal cell carcinoma. He was told that he could live up to 6 years with the medication and the treatments. And that's the longest lived of anyone with his diagnosis in recorded history. Today, Diego is alive and well. 17 years later, he's pastoring a very large church. He is like an outdoor beast, cycling, running, and God purposed for him to live a life that would see his children, grandchildren, and we believe great-grandchildren instead of the death sentence. And I watched him, Josh, when he visited me in Florida, kind of like you did. He was on oral chemotherapy at the time, and he went to the beach one of the mornings, and he took the bottle and threw it in the ocean. Now, we don't believe in littering.
The pollution there, but outside of that.
Such an amazing story. And our whole church prayed for him, and he is a great testimony. And you'll see in the Biblio Diet, with the latest revelation the Lord gave me, I tell a great story about a young man who was diagnosed with osteosarcoma of the femur.
Oh, yeah,
and he
wow.
was 6'2", down to 110 pounds. He was going to die, and God healed him as well.
And
so amazing.
One thing I want to point out, this isn't a one-time thing where just Jordan Rubin was able to reverse and heal cancer. There are thousands and thousands of testimonies and people, tens of thousands of people that have reversed cancer naturally. And it's not to say that there's never a time for conventional, especially when it comes to certain things like maybe even a surgery. But generally speaking, again, I think that most people don't realize when most people die of cancer, I think the numbers are secondary cancer kills more people than the first time they're diagnosed with cancer.
Well, and also malnutrition and infection. And what are those caused by?
Yes. And so if you think about it, here's what happens when you do chemotherapy and radiation. You might kill the cancer cells, but you've now then just damaged every other cell in your body. You've damaged them. I mean, there's studies on this. You've damaged the mitochondria, the cell membrane. Overall, you create loads and loads of more senescent cells. You age yourself greatly. I mean, I remember when after my mom went through chemo, the biggest thing that I noticed is that it looks like she aged many, many years after going through it. And she was left with constipation, really chronic. So now she wasn't detoxing properly. She was left with autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue because her mitochondria was so damaged, depression, anxiety. She was just incredibly sick afterwards. And so again, versus the way that you did it, now you're getting healthier. You're adding years to your life. It's a very, very different way of healing. And so if you're looking to heal, number one, as Jordan talked about, it's a spiritual battle. This isn't against flesh and blood only. It's against the spirit of fear, the spirit of the devil. And so everything you can to set aside time, 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day to spending time reading God's word. And the big thing is praising God that he's working a miracle in your body right now to heal you. That's number one. My mom had 20 Bible verses, and by your stripes you were healed. Heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. For you are the one that I praise. Psalms 103. I mean, just meditating on God's word day and night, 3 times a day. I remember she did, and then there was a sense of when she was doing it too. Like she had a prayer similar to what you did, and she experienced joy during it. Like there was this sense of like just happiness and joy knowing of the miracle that's happening. So that's number one. Number two, as we talked about diet, just a review for everybody. The things that Jordan is doing is so amazing. It was lower carbohydrate. There wasn't much sugar there. It was very raw. It was very high in enzymes. Again, raw salmon. We know the literature shows raw liver, raw beef. These things, along with these amazing plant-based foods, especially vegetables and herbs, are very powerful. Mushrooms, those sorts of things. So getting on a diet like that is incredibly powerful. And then maybe you pick a couple therapies. It could be a lymphatic massage using essential oils. That's a great thing. Heat therapy like infrared sauna, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. There's a lot of things you can do now and that we have access to that can support your healing of cancer. But I want to encourage you, if you want to get many of the things we're talking about here, to get our book, we wrote a book called The Biblio Diet, where Jordan and I really get into the healing secrets of the Bible. And I want to touch on a few of those foods. Jordan, in order to prevent cancer and fight cancer, what are some of your favorite foods that the Bible talks about that have anti-cancer properties?
Absolutely. We'll start with the obvious. Olive oil is such a common theme throughout the Bible. In fact, when oil is mentioned, it was often olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is amazing. It's a good source of fats, but the right kind of oil is a great source of polyphenols. So as you look throughout Scripture, the figs, the pomegranates, some of the other fruits, grapes obviously, which they would use fresh in wine, and as raisins, which were dried, all contain polyphenols. Polyphenols are powerful cellular immune boosters. So for me, I consumed a lot of polyphenols, which supercharged my cells, whereas conventional therapies kill your cells. They kill cancer cells and they kill healthy cells. I was causing my healthy cells to multiply, and we've talked about this before. I can't say it enough. There's a polyphenol in berries, primarily raspberries and blackberries, pomegranate, walnuts, and in fruit tree leaves, which we talk about in the Biblio Diet, called ellagic acid or ellagitannins. When you consume those, your gut microbiome, especially if you're taking a good probiotic, uses these to help your body destroy cancer cells, lower insulin levels, which we know is a big determining factor on cancer development, making sure the sugar is out of your bloodstream and into your muscles, and it is antimicrobial, antiparasitic, antifungal, bacterial, and viral. And we know there's a link to co-infections or secondary infections weakening your immune system. We just saw our close friend, family member, Dr. Pete Sulak, who was recently on your program. He was on an anti-parasitic protocol based on his evangelism travels throughout the world. And we're seeing a lot of people that are claiming anti-parasitic drugs that are repurposed are helping them fight cancer. So utilizing ellagitannins or ellagic acid, again, from pomegranate, raspberry, blackberry, and walnut is amazing. Extra virgin olive oil, polyphenols. But I also consumed raw dairy products, primarily from sheep or goat, A2, and including butter. I believe these fats, along with eggs or egg yolks in particular, are amazing energy sources. They provide short-chain fatty acids, and I believe they can help remove waste from the body. When you have enough fat, your body is able to cleanse the fat-soluble toxins, the ones that are from pesticides and herbicides and plastics and all of the stuff that we get in our bodies through environmental exposure. They're fat soluble, and some of these fats allow your liver to cleanse effectively, and that was a big part. So I'd make a smoothie every day where I had dairy fat, raw eggs, they were super healthy from a local farm, and a big serving of berries. So I had a combination of ellagic acid, anthocyanins, which are polyphenols in blueberries, and then this raw dairy. I used a pure source of unheated raw honey. I knew where it came from. It was never heated, and that was designed to help boost my cells. And as I said, I use vegetables. Cucumber is a very underrated vegetable, but I consumed lots of cucumbers. In the Bible, they consumed leeks, melons, and cucumbers. And I ate red meat every day. And if someone says, red meat, that's terrible for cancer. Red meat is one of the supreme healing foods on the planet. The wisest man in history, according to God, was King Solomon, and he ate red meat every day. In fact, in the Biblio Diet, we're going to tell you the wisest meal on the earth, and it's going to shock some people because it involves red meat at the forefront. The creatine, the collagen, the carnitine, the carnosine, anserine, zinc, iron, B12, B6, that's all found in a food that has been vilified, and I believe it's on purpose.
Well, and CLA, which has anti-cancer properties.
Yes.
There's loads of benefits of red meat, and especially doing it in cancer in the raw form as you did it, incredibly powerful.
And you can always consume raw meat rare, medium rare. You get more of the creatine and the benefits that way. But that helped me stay strong. I've been on a vegan or plant-based diet, a juice cleanse in the past, and I always lose a lot of weight and feel weak. The interesting thing about my cancer journey is I felt strong. I felt alive. My brain was working amazingly well because of all the choline that I had from the eggs and all the B12 and the zinc and iron. My blood was strong. Salmon is huge. And I made sure to only consume sockeye salmon because a little bit of vitamin D it has, which is great, but astaxanthin is a fat-soluble antioxidant that crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it does something called singlet oxygen radical quenching. So these singlet oxygen radicals can also cross the blood-brain barrier and cause all kinds of issues. Sockeye salmon is the richest in astaxanthin. It's only fresh in July because that's when the salmon run in Alaska and in the North Pacific. But you can get canned salmon from sockeye, frozen, and even sockeye salmon jerky and dried meat. And I want to say this. We believe that everybody who's battling cancer can benefit from what we share in the Biblio Diet, whether they are on chemo, had radiation, had surgery. We're not telling you what to do or what not to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that people know they have a choice. I remember when your cousin and my close friend, Dr. Pete Sulak, was going through his process. He had surgery. It was an emergency. And then he was listening to his oncologist. He played me the audio file. She didn't for a second question whether he was going to do what she said.
Yeah.
Everybody does what she said. You're going to do chemo while you're doing radiation. Then you're going to do chemo again. And what's crazy is she said, people are living as long as 7 years now with this protocol. And you know what I thought? People are dying in 7 years with this protocol.
That's right.
Why? Because Pete needed the surgery. He had a huge tumor. I remember him talking to him on a Friday. Then he called me on a Monday. I could barely understand him. He was slurring his words. He got the surgery, which literally is like cracking your head open. Think about how your body takes this. Your body doesn't know there's surgery. You crack or drill someone's head open and you get anesthesia, you get antibiotics, you get pain medicine. Then immediately, not with a time to heal, they're going to burn your brain, because that's what radiation is, while poisoning you with chemotherapy. And again, do people get better and survive with conventional treatments? Absolutely. I'm not saying they don't. But what I'm suggesting is if your body gets drilled through your head cracked open, operated on, a bunch of chemicals, then your brain gets burned, and then you get poisoned, the average person's going to get sick from that.
Yeah.
And I said at minimum, I said, Pete, just give it some time. You and I and our friend Dr. Gezagoli, who was also just recently on your program, wrapped our arms around Pete and we said, listen, Pete, whatever you do, we're going to help you. But if it was us, here's what we would do. And we're not just telling you, we're going to walk with you and we're going to celebrate your healing where you're going to believe for it. And we know it's going to happen. Most people wouldn't have the guts with a 1% chance to live, a brain tumor that is so devastating, to fight it naturally. But thank God Dr. Pete did. And right now, while we're on the air, I guarantee you he is coaching someone to overcome cancer right now. 250 people a month, each of the last 3 months. This one man who before that was on fire for Jesus, spreading the gospel, practicing chiropractic and nutrition. And now he is sharing a message of health and hope every day. And as many people as Pete can reach, 250 a month, which is amazing. The Biblio Diet can reach more. In fact, someone watching today, they may not have cancer or a diagnosis, but they have a friend or a loved one that does. Get the Biblio Diet for them. And not only that, chapter 14 in the Biblio Diet is something called Healing Leaves. It is a revelation God gave me. I can't unpack it completely on this program. We will in the future. But anyone who's watching or listening, if they want a free download of chapter 14 of the Biblio Diet, don't even wait. The book is out, but you can get it right away. Just go to thebibliodiet.com. That's thebibliodiet.com. Look for Healing Leaves, chapter 14 free, and you can get it. You can send it out to anyone you want. And then hopefully you'll buy the book. You'll have the prayer. You'll have our top list of herbs, spices, foods and beverages. We're going to tell you the best bread to eat. Yes, bread. The best meat to eat. The best dairy to consume. What sweeteners are the best? What do you do with salt? Too much? Too little? Mindset is medicine. And ultimately, we wrote this book, as the subtitle says, to help people live long, master metabolism, reduce pain, fight depression, and conquer cancer with healing secrets from the Bible. And I believe people are going to experience just that.
Yeah, I do too. You know, I think one other thing that's exciting, we've already had a pastor say this to me, that he's going to have his church go through and use this book as a small group curriculum. So if you've got a growth group or have a church, this is a great book to do on really walking through what does the Bible say about food? What does it say about healing? What are some of the Bible verses? It's really powerful. You know, one thing we'll hit on more on the next time I have you on, but I just want to mention, there are so many healing herbs and spices, mushrooms, and leaves, as you talked about, actually tree leaves. And this is something we should really dive into next time when I have you on here next month, is going through what are those herbs, spices, both in the Bible, even modern day as well that can help heal the body in different conditions. Garlic's an example of one the Bible talks about that has so many studies on it for healing cancer, and there's many, many others. And so we'll get into that here in the future. But want to just encourage everybody, hey, check out the book. It's called The Biblio Diet, Healing Secrets of the Bible. You can get it on Amazon.com. It's in bookstores nationwide. And it's a book I know Jordan and I poured our heart and souls into, and we really walk through these amazing stories of people healing incurable diseases, everything from cancer to autoimmune disease to infertility and those types of issues. So we go through that and talk about, again, the food, the diet, and many other surprising things in the Bible. In fact, there's things in the Bible that modern medicine says, don't ever do that the Bible says, no, if you want to heal, do these things that we get into as well. So I want to say, hey, thanks everybody for watching and listening. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know, what is your biggest takeaway from the wisdom that Jordan shared today? Do you know someone with cancer? What is something maybe you learned, again, that Jordan shared that was just, sort of opened your mind up? I know there was a lot of things for me. And Jordan, want to say, thanks so much for coming on and sharing.
It's a privilege to be able to share this message. And I believe somebody, if not multiple somebodies, is going to receive healing. And it means everything to not just them, but their family.
I love it. You can follow Jordan on Instagram. It's Jordan Rubin. And you can also, again, check out his books, including the Biblio Diet, online. I want to say, hey, thanks so much for watching. Listen, the greatest thing you can do to support this show is do two things. One, share the episode. There are millions and millions of people diagnosed with cancer who don't know how to heal naturally, or they will be in the future. The number of people that are diagnosed with cancer sometime in their life is extremely high. And so sharing this would be so, so grateful for. And the second thing is subscribe. Please, we've got amazing guests on. We're doing so much on a regular basis to continue to grow the show, but allows me to bring on more high profile guests and regular guests like Jordan here. So thank you all of you for subscribing as well. We'll see you on the next episode.